Wassalamu ala Rasulillah ba'd. All thanks and praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for we seek His help and His forgiveness, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil within ourselves and the consequences of our evil deeds. Whoever Allah guides can never be led astray, and whoever Allah leads astray can never find guidance. And I bear witness Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his last and final messenger. So the topic today was about the month of Safar, right? So right off the bat, I'm going to ask you guys, what number month is it in the Islamic calendar? No. What month is the second month of the Islamic calendar, right? So Safar is the second month of the Islamic calendar. So close enough. So when it comes to the month of Safar, right, there is not necessarily a religious connotation to it, right? Whereas with certain months, they're known as sacred months. And in these sacred months, the Muslims back then, they were not able to go to war, right? One of those being the month before, which was Muharram. So at this time, Allah commanded for Muslims to not go to war. Instead of Safar, or rather, Safar does not hold any sort of significance of the similar nature, but rather there is a lot of historical facts, a lot of history in regards to Safar, and in particular the practices of the mushrikeen in the times of Jahiliyyah, which was the age of arrogance. It is said that the month of Safar was called Safar by Arabs of the pre-Islamic period. This is because the word came from the same roots as the word in travel, and in some of the scholars would say also in regards to them going out and migrating, which would translate to the word similar to the word sifr, which means zero, right? So again, we'll get into that, but the Muslims would go out, they would leave their homes, and they would be left with nothing. In some cases, when they would go to war, they would leave their enemy with nothing. So these are the connection that it has, but particularly it being the same root letters as the word Arabic for travel, because we know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually migrated in this month, right? And also he fell ill in this month, which we'll get onto later on, inshallah. So their homes were left empty as people traveled out of the town to seek provisions during the winter season, leaving the month open to several misconceptions and superstitions associated with scarcity during pre-Islamic times. So the history of the month of Safar, right? It does not have any religious significance. Of course, it's an Islamic month. We should do good in all times, especially in sacred months. But when it comes to Safar, right, like for example, Dhul Hijjah, there's Hajj. And on Dhul Hijjah, we have the action of fasting on the day of Dhul Hijjah, or on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah on Yawm al-Arafah. And Ramadan, all of Ramadan, we fast, right? And that fast is mandatory. The fast for, Dhul Hijjah is optional, but it's specific for that month. When it comes to the month of Safar, there is nothing in particular. The reason why Safar is more so spoken about, or there's an emphasis on it, is because of the history of the month itself. Because the pre-Islamic, the Jahiliyyahs, the Arabs of the Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic times, the times of ignorance, they would associate this month with, bad omens or bad luck and this and that, and people pass away. It was mere coincidence, right? When someone goes out, especially, now we have a lot of technology, now we have a lot of things that help us. We have Uber Eats, we have, Grubhub, and what's the get-go now that brings groceries to your home too, So this is what helps us, and these things, they help us, kind of have that convenience, rather. On top of that, clothing and, this and that, and our bodies adapted. It was different back then. We have supermarkets on the corner, walk a block, get your stuff, go back home. Back then, they would have to go out. They would have to fetch for things, right? They would have to work harder. It wasn't as easy to get provisions as it is now. So again, if you go out, you put yourself at risk, or a large group of people, if they put themselves at risk, what's going to happen? Statistically speaking, the amount of casualties that occur, or the amount of things that happen, it's going to go up. Now, this is not in relation to the bad omens or something is negative during the month of Safar. This is just mere statistics, right? But again, there's a reason why that era was called the Jahiliyyah, right? Because they associated this, instead of looking at the facts, instead of looking at what's going on, Safar is a month of bad luck. Make sense? So this mere coincidence is what made them associate this bad luck with the month of Safar. So Safar was also the month in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fell ill before he passed away on the next month, Rabiul Awwal, on the 29th of Safar. The Prophet ﷺ was in Al-Baqi, right, which is a graveyard in Medina, and when he was leaving, his temperatures rose extremely high, and they say that you can feel the heat above his headband, right? So he had longer hair, to push it back, and you could feel the heat above his headband. Despite being in ill health, he continued to lead the Muslims in prayer for 11 days. So he was extremely sick, and this was what, again, was close to when he passed, and this occurred in Safar. Again, people, or they associate this with Safar being no. There's nothing negative about the month of Safar. This is mere coincidence, right? Because you have things that happened to Rasulullah in other months, right? Things that were not, again, he passed away, which is to the point it's so significant that it was a sign of Qiyamah. But the point is that other things happened to him in other times. But this doesn't necessarily mean that that month is bad. To even mention further, in Islam, we don't have this concept of bad omens or bad luck and this and that, right? Everything is from Allah. Qadr is from Allah. Your provision, everything is written to you from Allah. So therefore, for me to say this specific time, right, is of bad luck, it's bid'ah to the point, depending on how extreme it goes, it can even go to kufr, right? For me to say, oh, this, or this thing brings good luck or bad luck and this and that. No, there's nothing of this nature in Islam, right? Everything is from Allah. Something good happens to you, it's from Allah. Something bad happens to you, it's from Allah. And even in that bad, there is perhaps good for you, right? Perhaps even if there is nothing that we see good, right? For example, we see, oh, look at the good in things, or it was a miracle in disguise or blessing in disguise. Sometimes you getting a punishment with there being no good, the fact that you got this punishment in this dunya means you were safe from it happening to you in the akhirah, right? So everything is from Allah. But just to mention that the Rasulullah ﷺ fell ill, or the illness that happened around his death was in the month of Safar. A month in which many trials and tribulations have taken place. It is said that the month of Safar was also, a martyrdom of other family members of his. But again, this leads me to my next point. There's specific practices, right? And I tend to keep myself away from these things, so that's why I don't know too much of these. But there's specific practices that happen in Muharram or in Safar in regards to the bad omens or the deaths of individuals. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? People, martyrdom of this, even for Sunni Islam too, people, oh, the death of the grandson of Rasulullah ﷺ or the grandkids of Rasulullah ﷺ, this has no place in our Islam, right? When someone has passed away, you make dua for them. Even for Rasulullah ﷺ, we don't hit ourselves for his death, or we grieve upon his death, of course, right? This is the fiqh of Islam, but everyone has to go away. But there is no action specifically dedicated to the month of Safar, which is a misconception that a lot of people have. I hope you guys don't have this misconception, because I know for the most part you guys are pretty solid. But the point is that these actions were not in the month of Safar, right? Whereas with Ramadan, for example, you fast, right? There's nothing of this nature in the month of Safar. Now someone will say, what about the white days of 13, 14, 15? These white days, which are basically a sunnah fast, right? Because 13th, 14th, 15th is when the moon is the brightest. These are known as the white days. It's encouraged to fast in these days for every month, not only in Islam, not only in Safar, right? So people will specifically do this for the month of Safar, not knowing that this is for every Islamic month. For every Islamic month. So all these actions that you see specifically associated with the month of Safar, these are made up. There's nothing in Quran and Sunnah specific to this month. There is virtue in every single month. There's reward in every single month. But the sacred months are set. Those 4 months are set. And the month of Safar is like every other month where you have to do good deeds and there's nothing specific to it. Keep you doing your good deeds and all these things. Now some people say Safar is a good month to do Umrah. That's specifically statistic as well, right? The month of Safar, Muharram and Hajj and all these things causes Umrah to be packed, full, right? Once that rush kind of dies down, which is around Safar, it's a good time to go and perform Umrah. Again, specifically speaking, this is not a religious thing. This is solely just statistics and, rush and, convenience, if you want to call it. So there is nothing, again, no specific dua, and there's nothing in regards to a sacred month when it comes to this. However, back then the Jahili used to move the month or add Safar into the sacred months. This was part of their ignorance for their benefit, right? To go to war, to not go to war, things of this nature. For their benefit, they would skew Islam so that way they could gain from it. So we mentioned the word of Safar in regards to Safar. They would leave everything and prepare for the season, and they would come back, or they would leave everything, which is kind of sometimes where that root word comes from. So again, Safar, right? The next point to mention in regards to this is that Arabs believe that the Safar was in a month of bad luck. And there's even hadith narrating it, and the specific hadith I was looking for, subhanAllah, came up, was Jabir ibn Abdullah reported that the Prophet ﷺ said that there is no bad omen in the month of Safar and no ghosts, even evil spirits. So he specifically said this in regards to the connotation that happened with the month of Safar. So again, these are small things in regards to that month. Again, the virtues of it are as every other month comes, right? The deaths and all these things are mere coincidence. They're pure coincidence. There is no bad omens like the hadith mentions. And that hadith is in Sahih Muslim. It's hadith 2222, right? All twos. But it's specifically mentioning because the Jahiliyyah, the Arabs at that time were associating it with this. So to clarify, and I want you guys to focus on the element of bad omens and no goals, evil spirits, right? Because this is something that we kind of have normalized in our culture as well, because we're surrounded by people of other cultures, of other religions. So we say these things in regards to bad luck and good luck and this and that. Everything is from Allah. Everything is ordained from Allah. So therefore, we have to believe in the qadr of Allah, not this whole concept of bad lucks and good lucks. And also this emphasizes, or the lesson behind this as well, is also about superstition, right? We don't believe in the concept of superstitions in Islam. Everything is from Allah. Everything happens from Allah. If a black cat crosses my path, boo-hoo, like nothing's gonna happen to you. If a mirror breaks indoors, it's fine, right? If you open an umbrella indoors or outdoors, it doesn't make a difference. Everything is from Allah. And these superstitions that I mentioned kind of sound, they sound kind of funny. But in our cultures, we have these things. So it's important that we stay away from this as well. So inshallah, we're going to make adhan. I believe we're going to take probably Q&A afterwards. Inshallah, Sister Khadija will let us know. But yeah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to implement everything we learned. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us in the Firdaus. Jazakumullah khair.
Alhamdulillah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.